Hi there, my name is Caitlin Bandy and this is my channel BandysBooks. And today we are here to start a new series of videos for my channel. It's going to be called Talk About It Thursday, and each Thursday we're going to pick a topic to discuss. Sometimes we're going to just discuss why you should read a specific genre, and sometimes we're going to discuss things that are kind of up for discussion within the bookish community. So today we're going to talk about a subject that I've seen popping up a lot on bookish social media. I think I've seen this more on Bookstagram and Book Talk than I have on YouTube, but it's still a relevant discussion and something that I think us as book readers and book reviewers should consider. We're going to be discussing two topics today. First of all, is a 3-star review a negative review? And then the second part of this question would be, should you leave negative reviews? The reason that I wanted to discuss this topic is because I've seen a lot of pushback on reviews that have been posted like on Instagram and TikTok and things like that, where authors of a certain book read what they perceive to be a negative review and then unleash hostility on the person that has reviewed their work. It's almost become kind of a weird, obsessive topic within the bookish community. I have seen so many tweets, so many posts on Instagram, reels discussing this, videos discussing this, and everybody has a different take. I am here today to just tell you about my take, kind of talk about maybe some different points. I'm going to try my best in this discussion to articulate what the argument is and then what my argument against that argument is. I don't want it to be a completely one-sided video, but I do have very specific feelings about this subject. So of course, my opinion is only my opinion. You can disagree with my opinion. So the first thing we're going to talk about is a 3-star review a bad review? So I think we get really entrenched in the star ratings, and it's easy to feel like that means that a work is bad if it's rated 3 stars. For me, what a 3-star is equivalent to like a C grade. So it means that it's passable. You're not failing the class. You're not in danger of any specific punishment or anything like that. It's adequate. Could it be better? Yes. Could it be worse? Yes. It's just kind of middle of the line. Typically, when I rate a book a 3-star, I think of it as something that was probably enjoyable enough, but maybe had some structural issues, or maybe characters that were a little unrelatable. Or it could be like, hey, I really like the characters, but the plot was really boring, or I really liked the plot, but I really hated the characters. It could be that everything was okay, characters were okay, plot was okay, but it's just not something super memorable. It could be that it was something that, hey, I've read this plot or this story many times over, or if it's something that's got twists, I found the twists predictable, things like that. It isn't saying that, in my opinion, that it's a horrible book. I won't read somebody's 3-star review and say, oh God, that book is terrible, I shouldn't read it. So for me, when I review a book and I say it's a 3-star read, I am just saying that it's fine. It's not bad. It's okay. You might enjoy it reading it. If you like, a specific genre, a specific theme, it might be more up your alley. But it's definitely not me tearing down a book. And I think most people feel that way about a 3-star review. They feel that it's kind of like a neutral or a middle ground instead of being, a scathing review or an extremely praising review. Going from there, should you post reviews that are 3 stars or lower? First of all, before we even start answering that question, I want to make a certain distinction. There is a definite difference between leaving critical feedback to somebody on their work of art versus tearing it down. Critical feedback looks like, hey, I felt like this book had some pacing issues. Here's an example. Or, hey, I felt like this character was flat. These things didn't work for me. Hey, I felt like this plot twist was a bit predictable. This is why. Whereas trashing a book is like, oh my God, this person's an idiot. I can't believe that they wrote this. This is the stupidest book I've ever read. This is the worst book I've ever read. So one is something where you're giving someone feedback that they can improve and grow with versus tearing them down, especially when you're insulting them as a human being and you're not just talking about their work of art. For the purposes of this video, we're going to be talking about critical reviews, not trash talking and tearing people down. So the argument against leaving 3-star or lower reviews, even when they're critical, is that it hurts authors. It results in books being purchased less because people are reading these negative reviews and then deciding not to buy a book. I totally understand that. I really do. I understand that from a deep place. I work as a chef for a living, and for most of my professional life, I have had to deal with customers going on Yelp and Google and TripAdvisor and leaving reviews. And in my career, those reviews have an effect. And the reviews that I deal with don't even have like proof. So what I mean here is that if I review a book, someone can still pick up that book and read it and decide if they agree with my review or not. But when you have a dining experience at my restaurant, you can leave whatever kind of review you want, and nobody is there to witness your experience. So they can't confirm or deny if things were the way that you said they were. And I empathize because I've seen people lose their jobs over reviews that were left on Yelp. I've seen chefs, have meltdowns over reviews that were left on Yelp. I have seen restaurants eventually close because of bad publicity on review websites. There isn't necessarily a method for keeping reviews fair. It is anecdotal, and it is the person's experience that they're writing about. Does it suck? Absolutely. I've had it happen to me and I hated it. It's infuriating. You want to defend it. You want to get on these platforms and like angry rant about how this person is wrong. But ultimately, at the end of the day, when we create art, and I think of cooking as an art, but whether your art form is literature, your art form is cooking, your art form is film, your art form is music, it is art. And by putting it in the public eye, you're opening yourself up for critique. In my opinion, the best art is the type of art that provokes a strong response. It is sometimes controversial, it's sometimes uncomfortable, it sometimes brings up negative feelings. But I think when books, when music, when film, when food, it elicits, strong emotions, it recalls memories, that's when it's the most successful. And sometimes you receive negative feedback from that. Sometimes people struggle with discomfort, struggle with, disgusting, struggle with emotional, and they don't know how to put that into words what they're feeling, and they take it out on the book or the movie or whatever. Oh, this book was uncomfortable, so I didn't like it. Well, someone else could read that review and go, oh, hey, this book pushes people into an uncomfortable place. This is exactly what I'm looking for. I kind of think of it like the person that's in an art gallery looking at a painting and crying because, they're inspired by the beauty, or they're, inspired by the horror in the picture. Like there's something in that painting that speaks to them. And it's the same thing with books. Sometimes a certain person is going to connect with a book and then not connect with another book. And that's kind of the way it is. The thing is that both the person that read a book and enjoyed it and the person that read a book and didn't enjoy it are valid. It's their own personal experience that's dictating their response to that literature. Like I said, it's difficult when those responses aren't always positive. But the thing about the non-positive responses is that they can also actually be beneficial. When I, as a chef, have received critical reviews, I have to always take a step back first. I have to try to depersonalize what I'm reading, because it's always hard to read something saying that you failed at something, or you didn't do well, or you didn't live up to expectations or whatever. But I always try to take a step back and depersonalize. And then I try to look for the critique. What is it that I can take from this that I can grow on? So when you're receiving critical feedback like, hey, my food wasn't hot enough, or, the sweet salty was out of balance, or this was too sour, or the meat was tough, I can take those things and go, okay, when I make this next plate of food, how am I gonna better this? How am I gonna improve from the critique? Some things are objective and you can't necessarily improve on them. There's just some people that are gonna like them and some people that won't. But there are definitely things within these critical reviews that authors could look at, understand, and possibly work on for future books, right? So if somebody is saying, hey, this book had a bunch of pacing issues, at one point it's really fast and then it slows down and drags for a period and then it gets super fast and rushed at another period, maybe that's an opportunity to reflect on your writing and go, okay, going into the next book, how can I adjust the pacing so it's a little bit more even throughout the book? Or like, if somebody is talking about your character and why they didn't relate to your character, if it's a personal thing, then nothing to be done. But if there's constructive feedback, it's a good opportunity to look at how you can develop your characters more thoroughly in the future. Another point is that negative reviews and positive reviews are both very useful for the consumer. So as somebody that's purchasing a book, I might do some research, right? So maybe there's a book I'm thinking about getting and I go on to Goodreads or Storygraph or Readerly or what have you, and I pull up a bunch of reviews. And if there is, for example, like somebody that reviewed it and said, hey, I'm not a big fan of romance, and when I started reading this book, I realized the whole thing is about romance, and I was uncomfortable with that. I, as someone who doesn't read a lot of romance, might go, oh, hey, this is probably not the right book for me. It might be a really well-written romance, but it's probably not something I'm going to enjoy just because I don't enjoy this genre, and I'm gonna go pursue a book that's more to my liking, right? Or for example, in a review where somebody is like, hey, this book has a lot of violence, trigger warning for, gore and blood and guts and all of this, I might decide, hey, this sounds like it's a bit too much for me, and I'm not really interested in reading something that's really graphic and gory, and let me just not pick that book up. That isn't necessarily a negative thing. I mean, it might come with a 3-star review where someone 3-stars it because, hey, this wasn't my taste in reading, but it lets other people know that, hey, this might not be my taste in reading. So the people that want to read that kind of book are going to read that kind of book. They're going to ignore that review because they're going to go, I don't relate with this person at all. I'm probably going to love it for all the reasons this person disliked it. And the rest of the people that are going to dislike it are probably not going to read it because they're going to identify with the negative reviews saying, hey, it's really gory and graphic and whatever, right? So by default, these reviews help you find the correct readers for your book. Whether they're negative reviews or positive reviews, it kind of channels people that are looking for a specific type of book to your book, or tells people to avoid a specific book. And finally, most people don't really decide on books based on one single review. I occasionally, with like a reviewer I really, really respect, where I very much agree with their opinions, like 99% of the time, I might take a review at face value. But for the most part, like if I log into Goodreads or Storygraph or Readerly or wherever, and I look up a book, if the first review that pops up is really negative or really fantastic, I'm still gonna read more reviews, because one person's taste in a book doesn't mean that my taste is gonna be the same. So I'm gonna look at like what the average reader thought of it. And then if I find like terrible reviews, I'm gonna look at, do I have similar concerns to this person that's reviewing right here? Do I agree with these things? Am I, like, for example, if I go to read like a Colleen Hoover book, there's tons of people raving about how Colleen Hoover writes the best books ever. But I don't identify with those people because I don't really love reading like toxic romance. So it doesn't matter how many people say that it's the most magical book they've ever read. I can look at a 5-star review and go, I don't think I will enjoy this book. This isn't the type of genre that I like, the type of book that I like. It's not about a topic that I want to read about. So ultimately, while I understand that these negative reviews feel awful and uncomfortable for authors, especially when they've put years and years of hard work into developing a book, all their blood and sweat and tears, and like the difficulty of getting things published, totally understand why it's hard receiving that negative feedback. That said, I do still think that people should post negative reviews. Again, not reviews that are trashing an author or tearing them down, but critical feedback I think is always going to be important for art to continue to grow and expand. And I think it's important for people to be able to share their opinions and feelings around the art that they're consuming without fear of the artist coming after them. I will also say that for me personally, when I hear about an author who is attacking reviewers for their thoughts and feelings on their books, it makes me want to read that author even less than any critical or negative review ever would. I think people have the right to make the art that they feel passionate about, but I also think people are allowed to respond to your art in the way that they feel, and attacking them for that is just not a good look at all. One other thing that I wanted to touch base on is something that gets brought up in this argument a lot, and that's that negative reviews or even middle of the line reviews hurt indie authors disproportionately to like big name authors. I definitely agree with that. So an indie author that might get 30 reviews on a book, if they have 5 really negative reviews, it's going to be much more noticed than a well-known author who, gets 10,000 reviews and receives a handful of negative ones. So I definitely agree that negative reviews can disproportionately hurt indie authors. The way that I personally deal with that is like when I've had indie authors reach out to me to read and review a book, I will ask them up front, like, if I read this book and I don't enjoy it, would you rather me not post about your book, or would you rather me publish my critical feedback? Most authors that I've worked with, even indie authors, have said, no, please publish your critical feedback. Just, don't trash me. You write whatever critical response you have, because, critique helps us grow. But there are occasionally authors that are like, I would rather not have negative feedback out there. So I do provide a little bit of lenience for a small indie author, understand the significance of each review in the case of a very small book. But overall, I really stand by the fact that A, 3-star reviews are not that bad, and B, that we should be able to freely publish critical feedback on any type of art that we're consuming, books included. So that's the end of my thoughts on this topic. I know it's a bit of a ramble. I did try to organize my thoughts ahead of time. I wrote myself some notes, but my brain is kind of tangential and goes in different directions all the time. So if it, ended up a little bit rambly and choppy, sorry, it's kind of the way it is with me. If you like this video, hit the thumbs up and comment down below. Let me know how you feel. Do you think a 3-star review is a bad review? Do you think you should publish critical feedback? How do you handle your negative reviews if you read a book and you really don't like it? And if you're not already subscribed to this channel, you know what to do. Hit the subscribe button down below as well as the notification bell. That way you never miss a video and we can see each other again soon. Thanks so much for joining. Bye.